We go. Thanks, Alan. Here's how today's town hall is going to work. First off, our guests will be speaking, and then we're going to be taking questions. Some of you have been sent in an email. Some of you have sent in an email with your story and questions ahead of today's event. These questions have been randomized. If your question is chosen, we will call on you to speak and then add you to our speakers panel. After we've heard your stories and live questions, we will then take questions from the Q&A box.
And without further ado, I would now like to introduce our International Chair, Martha McDevitt-Pugh, to launch our conversation today.
Thanks so much, Alan. So greetings to all our members and guests from around the globe. I'm delighted to be able to kick off this town hall, and I can't wait to hear our stories and questions. Before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to remind all of our North Carolina voters to check the Griffin list to ensure that they cure their vote if your name is on the list. Don't let Republicans erase your vote. We're going to put a link in the chat for all North Carolina voters and anyone you know who votes in North Carolina. So now I'd like to briefly introduce our panelists. First of all, Ken Martin, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, previous chair of the Association of State Democratic Committees, and former vice chair of the DNC. He has long been a driving force behind grassroots organizing and party building across the country. He served as chair of the Minnesota Democratic Farm Labor Party. And some of you may have had a chance to meet Ken in person at a DA event. He is deeply invested in getting out the vote abroad, and we're really honored to welcome him here today. We also have with us on the panel Reyna Walters-Morgan, also a good friend of Democrats Abroad. She's the vice chair for civic engagement and voter participation at the DNC and leads national efforts to expand access on the ballot and empower communities to make their voices heard in every election. And last but not least, we are thrilled to have United States Representative Joyce Beatty of Ohio representing us here today. She is representing Ohio's 3rd Congressional District and is an associate chair of the DNC. A former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, she is a champion for civil rights, economic equity, and healthcare access. So thank you so much to our guests for coming to our town hall today. And please, Ken, take it away.
Thank you so much, Martha, Steve, and Democrats Abroad. Thank you for tuning in to all of you from across the world. As Martha said, I've visited with many of you. I think I've been overseas and abroad with DA at least 4 times now, and I look forward to another trip in the future, whenever you want me to come back, Martha. But look, yesterday, hundreds of thousands of Americans demonstrated across the country and world in the hands-off protests. It was a powerful reminder to me that the power of the people is always greater than the people in power. And we saw that, of course, with the hundreds of thousands of people who showed up to make sure their voices were heard and to send a message to Donald Trump and to Elon Musk and to, of course, J.D. Vance, that we want them to take their hands off our democracy. And so, look, I held a town hall in Pennsylvania recently in Republican-led steel country. And I didn't know whether the folks I were talking to were Democrats or Republicans, but I'm going to make the same promise to all of you that I made to their community. When I come into your house, I'm going to speak honestly. I'm going to be respectful, and I'm not showing up just to tell you what I think you want to hear. But I will tell you what I believe. What I believe is that people are sick of politicians pandering to them. They see folks in Washington say one thing and do another. They see elected officials get into office and do one of 2 things: either sit on their power by doing nothing or abuse their power to help the top 1% become the top 0.1%. What Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing right now is a betrayal of American values, a betrayal of America's exceptionalism, and a betrayal of anyone who represents our country across the world. They're igniting a global trade war that once again treats our allies like enemies while simultaneously destroying the economy on the home front. They're targeting Medicaid, dismantling Social Security, and they're firing the people who keep our country safe, including Americans working abroad and those who put themselves in harm's way to defend our values. They're eroding our standing in the world's eyes and make us less secure, less globally respected, of course, and more isolated. And they're trying to take away your right to vote, relentlessly attacking our service members and general civilian expats just like you. I bet some of you are originally from red districts, and I bet some of you have tried to make your beliefs known to your leaders back home. But if your congressman won't talk to you, if they won't look you in the eyes, then we always will. I always say to my wife, Jen, that she has no time to suffer fools gladly. She grew up on a corn and cattle farm in rural Minnesota. But she would probably tell you that I don't suffer cowards. And right now, Republicans are being cowards. They're going to rubber stamp our country into oblivion because they're afraid of Trump. They're afraid of going against this irrational and erratic fool, Elon Musk, and they're afraid of you, the people. I was taught at a young age that you can't be scared of the things that make you uncomfortable. And I saw a lot of uncomfortable things as a kid. I grew up in the suburbs of Minneapolis, but we didn't have it easy. As Martha knows, I was the first son of a teen mom who had me at 15. She was raising 4 kids by the age of 20. We were in and out of shelters. We saw poverty and we experienced a lot of sleepless nights, and we barely made it. But I became a Democrat because my community gave a damn about a family of 4 kids. The easiest thing in the world would be to give up on someone, but nobody gave up on us. I got into politics because I thought my government should give a damn too. And I was sick and tired of what I saw from my elected leaders. Now, we're in a hard moment right now, but we are making progress and we are winning again. And when we win, we can put a check on Trump and stop him. We won in a plus 23% district in Pennsylvania. We beat Elon Musk in millions of dollars in Wisconsin. We historically overperformed in deep red Florida, and momentum is at our back. You know better than anyone that this administration has already done unthinkable damage to our international reputation, unraveling longstanding relationships with key allies. He's abandoned our obligations as a world leader, and he targeted our friends. Instead, he's aligned himself with dictators. So I'm proud to see Democrats abroad continue to come together and organize on a regular basis. It's critical that you maintain an organized presence throughout the world. You make up the margin in many elections. As you know, 6.5 million Americans or more live abroad, and by our best guesstimate, 80% of them are Democrats. Yet only 8 to 10% turn out, meaning that we have a very high ceiling of potential Democratic voters if the DNC makes significant investments, which I am proud to have delivered as ASDC president these last 8 years, and will do significantly more now as DNC chair. You are essential to ensuring that the rest of the world sees the best of American citizens, unlike what we're seeing in Washington right now. No matter where you call home these days, I know all of you are staying strong. And believe me, believe the DNC. We need you strong and in this fight. So thanks for having me today.
Good morning. For those of you who I have not had the opportunity to meet, my name is Reyna Morgan, and I'm the Vice Chair for Civic Engagement and Voter Participation. My portfolio generally includes, of course, civic engagement, voter participation, but it also includes voter protection. And a little bit of background, voter protection essentially lives at the intersection of organizing, political work, and legal. Our goal is to ensure that every eligible voter can cast a ballot that counts, especially our voters who are living overseas. Now, we know that defending against Trump's lawlessness and attacks on voting will be critical. The recent executive orders that he's issued peddle in conspiracy theories, falsehoods, and pursue personal vendettas as opposed to helping the American people. And unfortunately, we do know that these executive orders, as unlawful as they are, may actually have an impact on our work. I think it's really important to look at what he is doing in terms of the big picture, because he's issued several executive orders, but when you look at all of them together, they absolutely will have and have had a chilling impact. He issued the executive orders targeting law firms by name. And let's be clear, he targeted those law firms because they represented Democrats. They fought against voter suppression or aimed to hold his administration accountable. And it's absolutely intended to make law firms think twice about the cases that they take on. The DNC is working to expand the legal team, and that is going to be critical to making sure that we can meet the moment that we're in. And in addition to that, he also issued these executive orders around election integrity. We have to use the quotation marks on that because there is nothing that is protecting our elections in terms of what he's doing with these executive orders. And we have to also be clear That election integrity executive order is a broad and significant overreach into the responsibilities that the states have to establish the time, place, and manner of running their elections. Again, the DNC has been on the front lines. We have filed lawsuits with our sister committees. There are a lot of other lawsuits. I know the Democratic Attorney General recently filed lawsuits. There are other organizations. Everyone understands and recognizes that these executive orders are unlawful, unconstitutional, and an overreach, and Democrats are absolutely fighting back on those efforts day in and day out, and we'll continue to fight on those efforts. Another thing that I think it's important to know is that the DNC has traditionally and will continue to be on the forefront of building the infrastructure needed to fight these fights. The DNC has traditionally supported groups like Democrats Abroad and their voter protection efforts. We have worked very closely with Democrats Abroad to make sure that the protections of voters overseas are at the forefront of everything that we're doing, and we will continue to work collaboratively. In addition to assisting with, the strategies in terms of litigation that the DNC is doing, I think it's also important to shout out Democrats Abroad and really understand that the work that they do plays a significant role in helping to bridge the gap between what's happening legally and what we can do in terms of providing tangible strategies for organizers and information for voters. Democracy work has been on the forefront of the work that the Democrats have been doing since the 2020 election. The DNC has started several first-of-its-kind initiatives to deal with Trump's lawlessness. We started an anti-subversion program back in 2020 when it was clear that he had no intention of accepting the election results. We have done a lot of things like creating tip lines, hiring legal teams, message testing, a lot of information that we were providing to our partners to make sure that they had what they needed to fight that. And unfortunately, the same subversive tactics that we saw in 2020 are continuing in North Carolina. They are still at play today. I know that Martha mentioned the Riggs case. This is really, really something that I need to make sure that all of our voters overseas are being mindful of. Please don't wait to check the Griffin list to see if your vote is one of the ones that has been challenged. The Riggs race is the only uncertified race left in this country from the 2024 election. Justice Riggs won. There have been multiple recounts confirming her win, yet her Republican challenger, and unfortunately the North Carolina appellate court is abusing the legal system with partisan activities. These are the definition and the epitome of activist judges. And what we can't do is wait. And so the organizing has to happen now. Please utilize the links that Martha is sharing. Please don't wait to check to see if your name is on the list. And if your name is on the list, go ahead and rectify and cure that ballot. This is going to be a fight that we're going to take all the way, not just in the legal system, but to the streets. As Ken mentioned, there are so many people who are out protesting yesterday. Our voice is our power, and we are going to continue to hold this administration accountable in every way possible. Thank you so much for having me here today, and I am pleased to turn it over to our esteemed Representative Joyce Beatty.
First, let me just say thank you and what an honor it is not only for me to be on this town hall this morning, but for me to join Ken Martin, our leader, and certainly Reyna, and want to thank them both for their remarks, which in our congressional role, we say, I associate myself with all of those remarks. But I think it's so important this morning for us to each outline for you in our remarks our role. And certainly you have heard the strong leadership of Ken Martin. You've heard Reyna talk about all of her experiences, and she's been on both sides, which is so critical when we talk about outreach. But we also must face the true facts of what we're dealing with this administration. This administration is something that puts us not only in a critical hour, but it puts us in the most unprecedented times that we have been. defend. Whether that is speaking to you as Democrats abroad and the number of countries you represent as voters here in the United States. Our role is not only to keep you updated and engaged on all of the tools we have, but it is also to merge and integrate you into our process. And for me, that includes our legislative process. It also means that as I and others made a commitment to you, that we would make sure that we were inclusive, that we spoke up for Democrats abroad and address the issues not only that we are seeing every day here in our country and for me in the United States Congress. It's important for us to not only do this town hall, but in my new role as an associate chair, to make sure that we have ongoing forums to keep you updated on things that we're doing. We know when we look at this administration that they believe in autocracy. We know that they are in their minds through Project 2025, through what they are doing now in just every phase of our government. I've been there, whether it was standing outside the United States Department of Treasury, whether it was there outside the United States Department of Education or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They are wanting to hit us in the places that will weaken us and shut down our government to go into a dictatorship. So here's where we are. As we're looking at the legislation that comes before us, we are making sure that we are communicating, thus the timeliness of this teletown hall. We are making sure, as you heard Reyna talk about, we are in litigation. And we are winning in some 53 cases. And also, we are dealing with the legislation. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to be a speaker at the National Action Network, Reverend Al Sharpton's National Convention. And we had 4 of the leading attorney generals that were involved in those 19 states who prevailed. And that is the hope that we must have. We must always remember that we have been here before and history repeats itself. The number one thing we can do is to be united and not attack one another and figure out how all of us coming together can exercise our power and our message. Let me give you a prime example. This past week, we were dealing with the SAVE Act that was to come to the floor. And as you know, the SAVE Act is something that will deal with hurting all of us when it comes to the number one and most powerful thing we have, and that's voting rights. They are trying to suppress our vote with this whole issue of the identification that we have to present. If you think about females who decide to take their spouse's name, or any partners who decide to take their spouse's name, that is not going to match on what they're requiring for identification, and that's a birth certificate. We know many people don't have possession of their birth certificate. We know, especially maybe for Democrats abroad, some of the things you may not have with you at that time, they are using this to weaponize us against our voting rights. It is affecting veterans, LGBTQ, our seniors, those who live in poverty. So I can pledge to you that we are very united and we are fighting hard. And we welcome your questions, your ideas, especially as we talk about legislating. The other thing in this new role is to crisscross this country, whether it is by Zoom, whether it is important. We are also pulling together for the first time all of our, I want to call it sisters and brothers in the movement, whether that is the DCCC, whether that is the Congressional Black Caucus PAC, whether that is the elect Democratic women, as we put bus tours. And I want you to know that Ken Martin started that, has led that in his travels already. Reyna has been at the forefront of keeping us informed and developing tools. We also had a retreat just this week before last, and we had 100% participation. And certainly, as we talked about how we would forge ahead, we did not leave out our 57 states and our Democrats abroad, because we can do this if we do it together. It is about communicating. It is by winning the lawsuits and fighting, and we are not afraid to do that. There are lawsuits now signed on by the DNC, the DCCC, and our House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. And as we both have said, we are winning in some of these lawsuits. Yesterday, listening to Letitia James, the AG in New York, the AG from Nevada, the AG from Connecticut, and AG William Tong was inspiring. They are relentless. Their commitment to truth and justice and holding up our right to vote. I've not seen it to this magnitude, because we know we can if we stand together, we can win together. And I want to be one of those voices that represents people and let them know that we have to believe in that there is hope and there is justice, but that will not happen if we do not unite, because it is about how we bring our unity together and unite is our power and our strength. Thank you. And I look forward to the stories and the questions.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. We are going to go now to the stories that folks have sent in, and we're going to announce the names of the questions that have been chosen. We used a randomizer on those, and we ask everyone to keep to a 2-minute limit, and we'll play a chime when you're close to your limit. And after you ask your question, one of our speakers will respond. So I'm going to ask our moderators to find the first question and have them ask that.
Martha?
There you go. Steve.
Yes. The first, we randomized the questions, and first question is from...
Sorry, just to clarify, the first question is from Makina Martin.
I'm sorry I'm going first because I don't know what people are going to be saying, but I will say I live in Sampsonville, which is a small rural village on Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia. I vote in North Carolina, and I have checked the list twice to be sure that I am not on that list. I have many, many concerns, as you can imagine. I'm heartsick over what's being done to my initial country because I am a dual citizen and I was born in the United States. My mother is American, Irish American all the way back. My father is a French Canadian from River Bourgeois, Nova Scotia, which is a few miles down the road from where I'm sitting now in his baby sister's family home on the shores of Bredor Lake. So I've been heartsick over what's going on and the way Canada is being villainized, which is beyond my imagination. I mean, this whole thing is just so incredible. My current theory is that Trump doesn't give a hoot because he doesn't plan to ever have to run again. So therefore, he thinks he's got it in the bag and he can go golf while all this is going on and everything is falling down around us. What I had asked about was I had two concerns. The one was Social Security, which is 70% of my current income. And I will be impoverished if something happens to that. I had cancer for much of my working life, and I was out with a disability from the age of 53. I was sick on and off. So I didn't get to bank the earnings I would have as a college instructor in psychology. I would have normally been fine. But my health care ruined that. So I'm very worried that somehow it's going to be decided that those of us who do not live in the United States are traitors of some kind. And that means that we don't need to get our Social Security unless we wish to move back. Or The other thing is that we'll be disenfranchised, as you said, with the SAVE Act. So I was asking, I mean, for me at age 77 to drive single-handedly back to North
That is 2
Carolina
minutes.
would be difficult. So those are my chief concerns, not to mention I'm sick at heart every day as I think about this. So I'm cheering you on from afar. Thank you.
So many of our members around the world are concerned about their Social Security, and I know Congresswoman Beatty, you as a member of Congress, is someone who's really concerned with us. Would you care to speak to our question?
Sure. Thank you very much. Certainly, we all should be alarmed with Social Security, but that is one of the issues that through our lawyers, we have been able to put a pause. Now, let me be blatantly honest. They did lay off many people in our Social Security offices, but we have been able to fight back because what they've done, they started with staff cuts and, as you know, trying to make policy changes to the Social Security Administration. And we are fighting that every day. And every day we have a new report on what they want to do from merging together old computer program language on accelerated timelines have prompted concerns by many people about their payments. In addition to people are concerned that their payments could get disrupted. So I can tell you at this time, Democrats are holding strong on Social Security. It is one of our top issues. We have Congressman John Larson from Connecticut, who has led this fight against them taking away not only our Social Security, but Medicare as well. So for now, we'll keep you posted. And maybe this is one of the things, there are several, but if we take the highlights from this conversation, I can make a commitment to get back to you and send you the updates and the victories that we are having. But it is one of our top priorities because I'm preaching to the choir. You know, Social Security is something that you have earned. I understand it as well. And certainly it is money that you have worked and earned for. And it makes a difference in people's lives, how they continue to thrive, pay for food, put a roof over their head. So I assure you, you have 100% support of the Democratic caucus. And let me just quickly add to that to give you a little bit of hope. We are doing so well with voting, and that is why this is so important to fight against voter suppression, because the margin or the gap between Democrats and Republicans in the House is a 3-seat margin when we're all up to speed. And they are very fearful of we could be able to win in those seats, as we just did with in the judicial courts. We had a victory. We had a state senator to also win. So we won in Wisconsin. We came back again with a state senator who Democrat won in a seat that for 100 years Republicans had held. So it's twofold. To save Social Security, we must have engagement. And thank you for that question.
Can I just add to this, Martha? You know, look, these billionaires, these unelected billionaires, this is the wealthiest cabinet in our country's history. They're worth a combined total of $460 billion. You think they've ever needed a budget on an extremely tight fixed income? They have absolutely no concept of what real life is for most families in this country. They don't see a missed or delayed Social Security check as a big deal, as Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said as much. These guys sure as hell don't know how much it costs to make dinner for a week or to buy a bag of pet food or catch the bus every day. And, you know, look, I mentioned the fact that when I was a kid, you know, if it wasn't for Medicaid or SNAP or WIC or Social Security benefits, I don't know if I would be here. And that's true for so many millions of Americans. So we have to step up and we have to stop this assault on Social Security. It will be devastating for millions of Americans here and abroad. So we're in this fight with you, and we're doing, as you heard Congresswoman Beatty say, we're doing everything we can to stop this.
I just want to chime in one last thing. I used to work at Social Security on the disability adjudication side as a staff attorney. And I can tell you that Social Security, in terms of staffing, had already been dealing with significant challenges. Governor O'Malley did a wonderful job in terms of trying to reduce the backlogs that Social Security was dealing with. What I can tell you is that your representatives are very well aware when there are problems with the Social Security system, because people call them. When that check doesn't arrive, those representatives get a call. And I think it's really important to remember the power that you have as a person who is receiving Social Security. You've got to make sure that you and everyone else that you know are making those calls, are telling your elected representatives the challenges that you're facing and the concerns that you have, because without a doubt, any single time there was an issue happening, those checks didn't arrive, or there were questions about whether those checks would arrive, those representatives got those calls and actions were quickly taken.
Thanks so much, all three of you, for the answer on that question, which is so important for community. I'm glad we were able to cover that. Lizzie, do you have the next question from one of our members?
Hello. I believe we are going to Suzanne Whitfield. I'm so sorry if I've pronounced that incorrectly. If you are in the audience, if you could pop your hand up. If not, then our co-host Rachel is going to read out your question. Rachel, if you'd like to go ahead and read that out.
Sure. Suzanne asks, a week and a half ago, I received from my local U.S. voting committee to again register for voting. No date of return expected was in the letter. I see now in assisted news reporting in my 2 U.S. newspapers and TV news that the president wants to cull voting lists, among others, of overseas voters. And Suzanne also notes that she's concerned about Social Security.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Reyna, this is a voting question. I would love it if you would start out on this one.
Well, what we know is that Trump has consistently assaulted and made false claims, untrue statements about voting by mail, voting overseas, and his targets have been UOCAVA voters. And what I think it's important to know is that, one, your rights are protected by the law. And there is, like, the law is very clear about what has to happen in terms of protecting voters. And Trump's efforts are really to try and circumvent the law. And we know that it's unconstitutional. We've been fighting. There have been lawsuits. We will continue to fight those lawsuits. And your leadership can tell you, I worked a lot with Julia in the past on efforts. There have been consistent efforts for years to try and undermine the efforts of our UOCAVA voters and voters overseas. It is always really ironic to me that a lot of our voters are military families, and the people who are fighting so hard to defend our country are the first people that the Trump administration is trying to target and limit in terms of voting. So here is what I can say: we're not caught by surprise by this. We know and we have known that UOCAVA voters and overseas voters have been targets. We have defended against and will continue to defend the right to vote for our voters overseas. We know that in many states, your votes are the margin of victory. And that's exactly why they're trying so hard to go after. I don't know what state that the notice came from. I think it would be really helpful in a follow-up to sort of get that information. And, we can do some follow-up. We've got great voter protection advocates who are working with us, and we can do some one-on-one digging in with you to sort of figure out anything that you might need to know and how we can help you.
I would just like to chime in here too, Martha, if possible. Last week, the DNC myself and Leader Schumer and Senator Schumer and Leader Jeffries actually filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump's executive order, which, as you all know, attempts to suppress voters. It upends voter registration system. It hands over sensitive information to DOJ. It stops states from counting eligible mail ballots, and it withholds federal election funding from dozens of states in the process. At every single opportunity, I just want you to know that Democrats are using every tool at our disposal, including the courts, to challenge these, what I would argue are unconstitutional efforts by Donald Trump to sort of rule by fiat. We believe we'll be successful in this lawsuit. And of course, as you heard, Congresswoman Beatty, Reyna, and others are fighting hard in their spaces as well to push back against what they're trying to do with the SAVE Act. It's really, really critical right now. We've never seen this unprecedented assault on our democracy and on voting rights. So it is critical that all of us stand up and make our voices heard on this.
And let me, if I may, just echo what both of them just said. We know through those executive orders what he's trying to do, and he is trying to hit hard at those who are abroad, those who are in the military, because when we're in elections like we have been in many of our states, that's what makes the difference in our victory. So one thing that we are fighting hard in joining our forces, because we know they have a strategic plan, and the whole thing, because they're, first of all, they're election deniers, and secondly, the only way they can win is through voter suppression. And they know that. They know when we band together, we will win. So one other thing they're doing, don't let them get us off our game. Donald Trump is very good at throwing a wrench in things to get us off our game and to worry about something else. But I know from meeting so many of you when we were at the DNC that how supportive you all have been of joining together. And this town hall is another indication of that. And thank you again for this.
Thank you. That's such an important issue for us as Democrats abroad. Thank you, all three. Alan is going to introduce the next question.
So I think, are we going to try to bring Gina up? I believe Gina Shear, if you're here, we're going to try to bring you into the conversation. There we are. And you should then be able to speak. If you turn on your video, we might be able to see you as well, but it's up to you.
I will try to do that if I can figure out how to do it. But I'll try to speak while I'm looking for my video, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, go right
I
ahead.
wrote to you because my husband and I, ever since January, have dropped our former practice of not discussing politics on Facebook, and we have taken to social media to try to protest against all the outrageous things that are happening. My husband, I live in Denmark. I voted in Texas, an uphill battle. But my husband is a Danish officer in the army, and he was in Afghanistan twice with the Americans, once in Kandahar and in 2006, and once in Kabul in 2011-12. And he got really furious when he heard Vance's comment about Denmark being a bad ally. And that caught the attention of the BBC, which did an interview with me and my husband. And then the Danish media picked that up, and we were on the Danish TV evening show talking about our views, me as a dual citizen and him as a veteran of with the Americans, and having received a Bronze Star even. So we are doing what we can to speak out, but we feel like often we're talking to people who already agree with us. Most of our friends, some of his are Republicans that support Trump, or at least his views, but often we feel like we're speaking to people who already agree with us. And we see a real need to address somehow the silent majority, or the silent minority, excuse me, of Republicans, like my cousin, my aunt, some others that I'm friends with who really are outraged and they're never Trumpers maybe. And how do we get the message out to those people who might change their minds, might eventually stand up against what is happening in the United States? And I feel maybe, well, my question for especially Ken Martin is, how is the DNC addressing that issue also? How are we going to speak in a way that can be heard by people who aren't Democrats but might stand together with us? Thanks, and I'm really sorry I didn't find my video button, but I will try to put a link to the BBC piece in the chat.
Well, thank you, Gina. And look, it's a really important question. And since becoming chair of the DNC, I made it clear that we need to get the DNC out of DC. And people thought, what the heck are you talking about? Are you moving the headquarters out of DC? No, it's precisely what you talked about. We have to actually get out of our own echo chamber, both online and in real life, and meet with voters in all of the spaces where they're getting information. Look, I was in St. Louis, Missouri a few weeks back, and I met with a farmer who showed up. I had read his story online. I asked to meet with him one-on-one. He showed up in his MAGA hat, right? And he's a Trumper. And I started to talk to him. 30-year-old farmer. He's a beef cattle farmer. 2 young kids. He had just taken over the family farm from his family, who's farmed that land for 100 years. And as we're talking, he starts crying. Here's this big burly farmer. He starts crying, and I asked him what's going on, and he said, "Look, I'm about to have my farm foreclosed on by the bank because the federal government's cut the contract or eliminated the contract for beef cattle with this farm, which was a $500,000 contract that was eliminated in all of these cuts." And he said, "I feel like a failure, and I also feel betrayed by someone I supported." And, this is happening. This is one small example of what's happening all around the country, which is buyer's remorse. We're seeing it far and wide. People who supported Donald Trump under the guise that he was actually going to improve their lives or make their lives more affordable or stand up for their communities. He's done nothing but, he is focused on just enriching the wealthiest amongst us at the expense of people like this farmer I met with. And so, but look, it's really important to remember that the Republican disinformation machine is really powerful. And but we as Democrats believe that a stronger weapon, of course, is giving people the facts about how Trump and his administration are screwing over the American people. Part of that is what we just stood up is this war room, right? 2 things, actually. As you know, we're doing these town halls, 50 town halls in 50 Republican districts so that those constituents have a chance to be heard. You've seen the news on that. People are showing up all over the country, of course, to voice their concerns over what this Trump administration is doing. I was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania with Congressman Jamie Raskin, where we did a town hall, and this small church was packed to the brim with 500 people, with a couple hundred people outside waiting to be heard. And, it wasn't just Democrats in there. It was Democrats, Republicans, independent voters who were just incensed by what was happening. And again, powerful stories that we have to hear and powerful stories we have to get out. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to meet with people both in person. And then the online piece of it is really important. This war room has sort of 4 main pieces that we're focused on. The first is misinformation and disinformation. This is really critical because it's very pervasive, and we have foreign actors and domestic actors who are trying to suppress the vote by spreading misinformation and disinformation, and they've been successful, frankly. And we have to get our hands around this because it's quite pervasive, as I mentioned. So we're bringing in intel, members of the intel community, Homeland Security, even military folks who deal with misinformation and disinformation to help us get our hands around this challenge. The second main leg of this work is the daily response. And you saw that we just announced on Friday the People's Cabinet. Much like a shadow cabinet that some of you are familiar with, we're launching a People's Cabinet of subject matter experts, people who are credible messengers, who can respond on a daily basis to the bullshit that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are putting out that day. So we are actually responding quickly, nimbly, with subject matter experts who can get our message into each one of these stories. The third thing we have to do is compete in all of these online and information spaces. You know, one thing corporate America and the entertainment industry understood about 15 years ago is that 90% of Americans have one of these, which is a smartphone. As a result, they were going to get their news, their information, and entertainment from digital spaces, and they started to move all their content online. And so we in campaigns and elections didn't make that pivot until way late. And in fact, the Republicans beat us to that. In 2020, they made that pivot and started putting most of their content into these digital spaces. And it wasn't just with macro influencers, podcasts or gaming services or, digital spaces, social media, etc. What they did so sophisticatedly is they would hire micro influencers. They would find the PTA mom with 1,000 followers and pay her a few $100 to spew their misinformation, or they would find the college basketball player on a small college campus that everyone followed and pay him a few $100 a month to do the same. And this is where we really got beat, because I believe before we ever got to the election and we started to rev up our campaign machine and our communications effort, the Republicans had already defined us before we defined ourselves. So we have to actually meet voters where they're at. And, some of you have heard me say this before, but I'm a hunter. People ask me where I hunt, and I'm not, of course, going to give up my favorite hunting spot, but when people ask me where you go to hunt for deer, well, it's pretty simple. You go where the deer are. And in this case, we have to go where people are at, and we have to use trusted messengers and validators to actually get these messages out, and to do it quickly, in a very responsive way, and most importantly, very aggressively. And last thing I would say as part of this war room is we have to take the gloves off. And I know that might offend some sensibilities of folks on this call, but I'm sick and tired of the Democrats playing too nice. We have to throw a punch. We have to be willing to, play dirty, and not in a way where we're lying or exchanging misinformation or disinformation, but where we're calling it out exactly as it is. Let me give you an example. The next time a plane crashes here in this country, I'm going to say that Donald Trump just killed, 100 Americans. Next time a kid dies of measles in this country, I'm going to say it like it is, that Robert Kennedy just murdered a child, right? I mean, we have to be willing to just be aggressive in how we talk about these things. And again, it's not lying. It's just calling it out for what it is. No more niceties. It's time to take the gloves off. So look, as Republicans run away from the voters, Democrats are quite literally trying to meet them where they're at.
If I could just add to this, and certainly agree with everything Ken had said, but look, going back to the J.D. Vance question, I'm from Ohio. J.D. Vance was not good for Ohio, and as I have said publicly, he's certainly not good for America. If we think at what he did to those Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, and caused trauma with children, and people had to have police and security, and then for him to come back and say it was a lie. That's my point. They will lie. And when he went there and said Denmark had not kept pace, or they had not devoted enough money for the troops, and that the people of Greenland were not safe from Russia and from China, He had no information to back it up. When the prime minister said this is not true, and they asked him for details, he didn't have any, and nor did Trump. And certainly, we know when we look back for how long Greenland has been protected by Denmark, going back to the 1700s, this is ludicrous. It makes no sense at all. So just keep in mind, they will throw things out there. They will definitely lie about something to get us off focus. But the real thing is voter suppression. That is the thing he is most fearful of. Along with that, to what Ken was saying about traveling, forming partnerships, think about this. They have literally given instructions to their members of Congress to not hold town halls, to not engage with their constituents. You know why? Constituents are asking the same questions you're asking now to them. Democrats are showing up at Republican town halls. Democrats are asking the tough questions, where in the past, Democrats have a town hall, 90% of the audience would just be Democrats asking us questions that we also already support. But now we have become unified. We're going there and demanding them to respond, and we're winning. So that's the thing. And that's why when you hear what Ken is outlining and you hear it in the words, he is so right. We are going where we are, and we're going into Republican districts. I'm holding in 2 weeks a town hall, and I'm doing it in a Republican district because I want them to know we represent all people. And lastly, and quickly, going back to the Social Security question, Social Security is not a thing that affects Democrats only. Republicans are now saying, wait, I voted for him. I didn't know he was going to do this to us. And so they live by the same financial guidelines and rules and pocketbooks that we do. He's attacking the way they can buy food, putting groceries on the table, putting gas or fuel in their cars, protecting their families, and more of the town halls like this, more people going back to non-traditional media. I want to thank that person who said they're now going on social media. Stories work. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Beatty and our DNC Chair, Ken Martin. Ken, I know that you have to jump because you've got a busy day ahead of you, but I just wanted to, before I introduce our next questioner, which is Angela Fobbs, Angela, if you get ready, just wanted to thank Ken for everything, for being here today. If you have any last words or if you have to jump, we're just super glad that you've been able to be here with us today.
I think I have a few more minutes, so I can stay on for a little bit longer. I do want to say one thing. I should have said this at the top. For those of you joining, I am just so happy with the leadership that you have here with Martha and Steve. Of course, I see Julia on here and so many others. The work that you all do is so critical to our party, and we see this every single election cycle. I've talked a lot about this, just the hyperpolarization that's happening in this country. But we know that you guys have made a huge difference in Wisconsin and in Florida and in other special elections we've had this year. Look, there's been 18 elections since Donald Trump's been inaugurated, and Democrats have overperformed in 17 of the 18, and we're winning many of them. And that's thanks to all of your good work. So I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to call out all the organizing you guys do. It's amazing, and we're going to continue to support you.
Thank you so much. That support is very much appreciated. A big mission getting out the vote in 50 states, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you. Angela.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just want to thank everybody for coming today. First, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. But I'd like to know, how do you personally feel about the Trump 2.0 regime? Many of our members would like to know, since we're all suffering, and sometimes we don't actually get to see how our representatives or how members of the DNC actually feel about these things. And one last thing, Ken, I'd love to be in your war room. So please, thank you.
Reyna, would you like to jump in there?
I can tell you that as a woman of color, as a lawyer, I am heartbroken every single day that the American people were sold a bill of goods. This is not what people signed up for. And I understand that, there were some challenges in the last election. Those are things that I know Ken is working on, and we're going to really think through and address. But to be in this moment and just to see, where things are, I'm sad. I'm heartbroken. But what I can tell you is that I'm also resilient because I'm sad, but I'm also damn mad at the same time. And I refuse to let these rich billionaire people who have no sense of what the average person is going through, who has no empathy for the millions of people who are descendants of slaves who built this country and who are watching as they try to erase our history, are going through. And quite frankly, that's why I'm in this fight. That's why I'm here. That's why I was determined that I wanted to be a part of this fight, knowing that it was going to be a long 1, 2, 3, and 4 years. And again, like, I'm sad, but I'm mad at the same time. And I think that's what a lot of people are feeling. And it's okay to feel both of those things. The call to action and the challenge that I have for everyone is that even though we're upset, we're tired, we're sad, we're angry, we're feeling all of these emotions, some people are scared. We have to find a way to be resilient. We have to find a way to get up every day and keep having those conversations with people on social media, even if you feel like it's an echo chamber. Find a way to have those conversations with your family and your friends in real life. Have conversations with strangers or people at your church or your community organizations, because it really is going to take all of us coming together. People are mad, and it's not just Republicans and Democrats. It's not just Democrats who are mad. Republicans are very upset too. The policies are not American policies. What they're pushing through are not things that the average American person is happy with. And so we have the power. We can hold them accountable. And my call to action to you is to take whatever it is that you're feeling and channel that into action.
Yeah, let me just say I really want to echo what Reyna said. It's really important right now to not give up, no matter how you're feeling, right? And it's sometimes it's easier just to shirk away and try to ignore everything that's happening. But it's devastating, to be honest with you, when you think about this. And I want to talk a little bit about the fact that, for years there used to be values that united Americans regardless of political ideology, right? Whether you were a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. These were things like respect for our Constitution, for the rule of law, for separations of power, right? The idea that we as Americans would stand with our allies around the world and protect emerging democracies, right? And the idea that we are a nation, unless you're Native American, we are a nation of immigrants and always welcome people to these shores, hoping to build a better life for their families or escape political persecution. All of these values which united, and many more which united Americans regardless of ideology, have now been thrown into the dustbin by Donald Trump and these unelected billionaires who could literally give a shit about anyone but themselves. And that's where we're at. And so I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm sad, just like Reyna. But one thing I know, right, is that we still have power. And our power is in our voice. Our power is in our organizing. As I've always said, if each of us just did one thing every single day to lift up, this fight, we would be in a much better place. And so we just need everyone to double down, as counterintuitive as it is right now, to have the conversations we need to with people. And don't be afraid, because there's so much buyer's remorse from Republicans and independent voters right now. We need to talk to everyone. There's no one right now. Look at Donald Trump's approval ratings and his favorability numbers. They're declining quickly, as are other Republicans as they continue to ignore the hopes and dreams of Americans all over the world, and attack people relentlessly in this country right now. And I will just leave you with this. I say two things every single morning, and one is a serenity prayer, which is very important for me, to be able to focus on the things I can control and the things I can't. And I say that to all of you because you all have things within your control that you can do. And I ask you, just like Reyna, to do those. The last thing I say every morning is a quote from my former boss, Paul Wellstone, my first boss and mentor and hero, who used to say, you can remake the world daily. And it's my positive affirmation every morning that we have an amazing opportunity. I have the best job in the world. Some say it's the shittiest job in the world, right? Sure, in some ways it is, but it's the best job in the world. I get to wake up every single day and help try to build a future that this country needs and deserves, and that people around the world certainly are hoping that we do. And that is an amazing opportunity to be able to help elect people who share our values to office and to change our country for the better. And so you are all a part of that. And I just want to call you to action right now. Keep doing what you're doing, for God's sake. We need each and every one of you.
Well, let me just add to that. So much has been said. And so let me say to you, whether you are heartbroken, whether you are angry, whether you are frustrated, or like me, just pissed off, all those feelings are real and they're justifiable. But we must take that resiliency and turn it into fighting back. And I remind us, because we also have to have hope. We can't just be angry and mad and say we're going to be resilient. Ken hit on it when he said a call to action. But let me give you the hope to remind you, in some of our lifetimes, we remember when we didn't have the right to vote in many places. And we're just going back to 1963, 64, 65, Job Act, voting rights, civil rights. And we got that because small groups of diverse folks came together. Didn't even make sense in that time of segregation, that white college students would sit with Black activists, that seniors would come and march over a bridge day after day, getting halfway there and turning around because what? Heartbroken, frustrated, pissed off, knowing they were going to be hosed and dogs were going to attack them, and people would bleed and die for the right, for freedom of the right to vote. But they kept going and they prevailed. And the same thing happened with housing and jobs. So the hope I give you, if we could do that then with less resources, with less intellect, we didn't have as many lawyers and diverse lawyers like I sat with AGs from across this country who looked like democracy and freedom. And while we know our freedoms are being stripped away, we know that freedom is not free. And so we're at a stage that we must take all of these feelings. And I am so glad that someone asked about how we are feeling. We're feeling the same way in that call to action when Democrats abroad stood up and said, if we take our 3 million plus votes and we vote in a block, we can wield power. Well, I am saying take that same attitude that you have had, couple it with the war rooms, the fights, and I've never seen so many organizations coming together, so many not-for-profits stepping outside and forming organizations that they can fight for the issues, whether it's Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid or housing or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or protecting our data. But more importantly, fighting against the billionaires, fighting against someone like Elon Musk, who is unvetted, unelected. There is no place for him. And if we band together, we will be able to unite and protect our rights to vote. And that is the inspiration and the hope and the message we have to carry, that yes, we're pissed off, but we're not giving up. He thinks that he's going to do this and we're going to walk away. We are not going to walk away. And I can pledge to you, with the leadership we have at the DNC, I've never seen so much strength in the DNC. And I've been on the DNC before. I am elected by my state to be there. Ken has appointed me to be an associate chair. We will work together. We will travel the United States, but we will be on Zoom with you. We will give you updates because we need you in this fight. And those are my personal feelings. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are really, really, this has been really awesome moments. So Alan, you're up next.
Hi, yeah, we have a question. There's so many great questions coming in the Q&A, and we wish we had time to get to everyone. We're really trying to pick out the ones that are most salient. And Rachel is going to read out a question from Natalie Gray.
Yes, Natalie says, I'm very concerned about our national parks and climate change. How are the Democrats pushing back on these issues? If any of you want to jump in, that's her whole question, and it says a lot just in those few words.
So it's a question about the taking down of another institution inside of our government. Yeah.
Well, let me just say this. Certainly, Democrats have been on record for environmental justice, and we stand up against Trump again. It's just, and I think just as you just said, it's another form of our government that they are trying to hit hard and make sure that we are off footage with that. We have a strong committee in the United States Congress that looks at these issues. And when you couple that with our energy and commerce issue, with our judiciary fighting against those things that they are trying to tear down, that we have fought so hard for. So I put this in that same box that we have when we talk about our injustices. They have been fighting hard to, again, get us off guard and take away all the footage and accomplishments we have made. And we will stand with you and keep you updated as we continue in this fight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Again, we have so many questions that are coming in. And I just really want to give a huge thanks to our panelists, to Representative Beatty, to Ken Martin and Reyna for being here with us today. And thank everybody in the audience for your participation and all of your questions. You know, this is just such an important, concerning, confronting moment that asks so much from all of us. And I really just want to recognize everybody for participating on your Sunday. Thank everybody for everything you're doing. If you come to the Democrats Abroad website, you're going to see it's all organized around resistance action. And so all the calls to action that we've heard today from our wonderful speakers, you know, there are very concrete things that you can do at Democrats Abroad. We're going to put links in the chat box. You know, we know that it's really confronting to read the news. You cannot read the news or doom scroll all day long. Therefore, we're tracking issues that really matter and where Democrats can make a difference. And we are curating those. And every week we put one or two take actions out there so you know exactly what you can do and we can work in concert and make a difference. So I want to invite everybody to get involved in that. You can do a resistance roundtable wherever you live. And I just want to say again to our guests, you know, we are here. We're in this together. Thank you so much for all of your support. And, you know, we're here to make that difference, you know, across the country, to push back. Thank you for your leadership in Congress, Congresswoman Beatty, because that is also so important that all of our members do express, you know, how they feel about what's going on in their country with their representatives, whether they're Republican or Democrat. They need to know they count the number of people that make those phone calls. It makes a difference. You know, put it in your daily practice, whether it's a serenity prayer or whether it's a call to Congress. There are many things that we do, and if we all do small things, we can really make a difference. And you know, it's been really clear here that voting rights is what Democrats was invented for when we won our right to vote. And we have always been about exercising and maintaining and educating people about that right to vote. So that came out so clearly. I'm really glad to have three speakers who are so passionate, committed, and effective and in action around our right to vote, including our wonderful vice chair for civic engagement and voter protection, Reyna Walters Morgan, who is with us in our fight to keep our vote, and not only to keep our vote, but to strengthen the vote of Americans abroad and make sure people vote. And lastly, Ken Martin, you've been such an amazing partner to Democrats abroad. This town hall, it takes something to organize a town hall, and the DNC has been so helpful and supportive of us in pulling this together. We're a virtual party. We're not, on the ground in where the congressional districts are. So this has meant so much to all of us. So just a really huge thank you to all of you, and to those who are here with us today. And we will, be continuing to support and communicate with this community about what you can do in this moment. So with that, I would just like to, give my thanks to everyone who's here today and wish everybody a happy rest of your day. The travel question.
Yes, I was just pulling it up. We do have questions
Yeah.
in the Q&A.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here's one of them. We're hearing in the Q&A many questions about Americans abroad entering the U.S. and the stories of border control harassment, such as investigating mobile phones, detainment for content, etc. What should we be doing here?
Yeah, it's a really great question. It's something that we're hearing a lot of questions, concerns, uncertainty from Americans around the world about what it's going to be like for them, what their experience is going to be like the next time they travel to the United States, what that will be like for their non-US citizen family members. Reyna, I know this is not like your topic, but I just wanted to be sure that we shared that with you because, of course, we meet in the United States as a DNC body and look forward to being together again at our next meeting. But do you have anything to share on the topic of concerns that Democrats sometimes that Democrats now have about traveling?
I have definitely been reading and tracking a lot of this. My mother, for a very long time, was a green card holder. Actually, the majority of her life was a green card holder, and only got her citizenship a few years ago at the behest of my grandmother. Because what my grandmother knew and what we were seeing now was that, there would potentially be assaults on people trying to enter and leave the United States. This is a really hard question. I think one, it's really important to make sure that, you know your rights as an American citizen. They cannot lawfully detain you as a United States citizen. And there are a lot of lawyers who are really trying to track this and really trying to get a sense of what's happening, who are the folks being impacted. Most of the things that I've seen have been around green card holders. I haven't seen as much at this point in terms of US citizens being questioned when they're entering or leaving. If I am incorrect about that, please let me know, because I think these are some of the things that we're, tracking, talking to partners about, trying to figure out, what's happening where, and making sure that, we know and can provide resources. Again, everything that I've seen has been around green card holders and entering and leaving the United States.
Yeah. So, in our community, we're trying to anticipate what it's going to be like when we travel with families of mixed citizenship, when, people who had an X marker on their passport try to travel again, maybe with their kids into the country. Of course, it's really distressing, when you have children and you're traveling in and you may be admitted to the United States because you are a U.S. citizen, but there could be all kinds of searches of devices and they could take you and delay your entry. So these are things that our community is really concerned concerned about. And I'm really glad to hear about all the lawyers who are paying attention to this, because that's also true with us at Democrats Abroad. We have a very senior immigration lawyer who is, on a daily basis, tracking and scanning for any cases of things that happen to U.S. citizens when they travel. He's also a member of the National Association, so he's in contact with the huge network of immigration lawyers, just to see how the situation is evolving. And I myself am traveling to the United States next month for a Democratic Party meeting. Our Vice Chair, Steve Nardi, traveled recently to the United States, and we know that it's not as fast as it was before. There's more questions. And of course, that's incredibly distressing for folks in our community. So I'm really glad to hear that you have lawyers, we have lawyers. I just think we need to make sure that this is also on the radar of the DNC, for those of us who travel to participate in Democratic Party activities. Hopefully we won't have to be meeting over here in the future. We can continue to come to Washington, D.C. But it's definitely a concern, and one that we know many Americans have. And thanks for your remarks.
Yeah, and I will say some of the advice that I've seen just sort of like floating around is, think about having a secondary phone, a burner phone, or a phone that you travel internationally with if you're concerned about, your devices being searched or social media being checked. That's something that, quite frankly, even as an American citizen, I have thought about doing when I travel to other countries. But I think, look, we are in uncharted times, and what we are seeing are activities that none of us, I think would anticipate that would be going through, that are violations of our privacy and the rule of law, especially when you're a United States citizen, entering the United States. And so I do think that it does help to be, take precautions to the extent that you can. And so if you are in fact worried about devices being searched or social media being checked, it might be worth thinking about carrying secondary devices when you're traveling.
Thanks. Thanks very much. Alan.
It's not a perfect answer, I understand, but
it's a really hard question. Do you have time to stick around for a couple? We have so many questions. And if you have time, we can keep going.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
All right, thank you so much. One question that comes up, quite a lot in the chat here, and I hear it from my friends on the street as well, is where can we see the Democrats who are fighting back? I mean, it seems like everybody is sitting there saying, all right, fine, we all understand how terrible things are. What are the Democrats up to, and what are they doing? And those of us who are plugged in sort of see it, but I think many people do not. So what can we do to raise the visibility of our fight back and to become more effective at it, I think, as well?
So this is one of those things where, I've often said to people that we have a big tent party. We have a lot of really amazing people who are out there fighting the fight, having those conversations. But I think that we are in a time when there might not necessarily be one knight in shining armor coming through. It really is going to take a lot of us, all of us, getting out and sharing the messages and, doing what we can to be effective. I think that Senator Booker's actions in terms of the filibuster and, staying on for over 24 hours was an act of resistance and something that people really appreciated seeing. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of that. But make no mistake, this was something that he determined that he was going to do, and it was the action of one person. And I kind of wanted to just like lift that up, right? It's the action of one person that makes a difference. We do have leaders. Ken is out there talking to people every single day. It's going to take more than Ken. It's going to take more than me. It's going to take more than, Senator Booker. It's going to take more than a Jasmine Crockett. But I think at the end of the day, all of us are out there. We're having the conversations. We're sending the messages. But we need you all, each and every individual on this call, to also take up that banner, because people resonate with messages that they can relate to, and you can relate to people in your communities. And I think that we have to not only look at, the politicians in Washington who are doing things on television that are getting, the attention and going viral. We can be those people. We can be those trusted messengers in our community. And we're going to have to be those trusted messengers in our community. I can tell you in North Carolina, people come to me in North Carolina because I'm here. This is my home. People know me. And so sometimes, like, I just sit and have conversations with friends or relatives or, people who I've just met who are asking me really tough questions. And they appreciate someone who is willing to have that conversation with them. And so don't underestimate the power of your own voice and the power that you're going to bring in terms of helping us fight this fight as well.
And I think actually we just saw yesterday people in the millions turning out.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and there was a group here in London that I joined. So
I know we have so very many questions that have been sent in, and we're not going to be able to answer all of them. Yeah, we have our last speaker still with us, but I just really want to thank everybody for sending your questions. I hope that we were able to cover a lot of the topics that people were concerned about. And we really appreciate hearing from you to know what's on the minds of Democrats abroad around the world. Because you're active in your country committees, you're engaged locally. That is so important. It is so important that we be there for each other right now, that we meet in person where we can. Exactly what what Reyna said, that we listen for each other, that we're there for each other in these really concerning and distressing times in our country. And Reyna, would you like to say any last words before we close the webinar?
Thank you again for having me here today. This is so important. Community is important. Having a space to ask questions is important. Your Dems Abroad leadership, you all have always been such a pleasure to work with. You're fierce advocates for protecting the rights of American voters overseas. I am looking forward to continuing that partnership with you. You all have my contact information. This won't be the last time that you see any of your leadership. So if I can be helpful, let me know. If there are other things that we can do, if there are other discussions that we want to have, know that I'm just a phone call or a text away.
Great. Thank you so much. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We're going to close the webinar and I really appreciate your participation and wishing everybody a great Sunday.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
everyone, bye-bye.